Tottenham Hotspur have appointed Thomas Frank as their new head coach.
And the consistency and the players know the patterns. But of course I'm aware that we need to be flexible sometimes.
You look what Thomas Frank has done over the course of 7 highly successful years, you can understand why Tottenham would be interested.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at @Stetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 257, and we have got a plethora of results to talk about when it comes to the Tottenham Hotspur Football Club this week. Got some news and notes to go over as well. I'm joined this week by Scott, who is at Scott G. Bird on the socials. Scott, how are you on this Sunday?
Chilling, jamming after that intro. Always gotta love Todd's dancing, right, to get the show going. Another reason why, if you're not checking us out on YouTube or wherever you can visually join us, make sure you do. But yeah, chilling. A good Sunday ahead. Got some Iowa State women's hoops this afternoon and a little beer league hockey tonight. Spurs are shit, but that's fine, right? Life's better than Spurs.
Pretty sure they're in the European places right now, but okay. Todd is also with us. He is at TC_Show. TC, what's up, my man? How's your Sunday?
Yeah, dude, Sunday's great. Any day you can talk to the boys about a 4-0 Champions League victory. That's pretty fucking awesome. I think some other things happened this week too, but I don't really know. Yeah, man, things are good.
Yeah, we had that little 4-0 in the Champions League that involved a potential Puskas Award-winning goal, which is
it's all right.
Wild to say because it was a carbon copy of a previous Puskas Award winner. Yeah, we're gonna get into all of it. Let's actually just jump right in and start there in the Champions League. Spurs do go out and get a 4-0 victory on Tuesday at home against Copenhagen. This was a weird match, even though it was a very successful one for Spurs, because they get 2 goals to start that are kind of, you could put it a little bit on the competition and maybe some goalkeeping errors on the part of Copenhagen. But they run out to a 2-0, and then all of a sudden Brennan Johnson goes off the pitch because of one of the stupidest decisions I've ever seen, not by an official this time, but by Brennan Johnson himself sliding into the back of a leg for no fucking reason.
You've been significantly more critical of that than anybody else that I've heard.
I just thought it was a dumb decision and a dumb challenge and an easy red card. I'm not sure even why it took much review for the red card to be given.
Because it wasn't malicious. It was stupid, but it wasn't malicious. And he didn't lunge for the back of the guy's leg. The guy's natural motion took his leg into the path of Brennan's already sliding foot, and it made it look optically terrible. But it wasn't a malicious tackle. He didn't scrape the back of his leg by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're an offensive player and you have the ball, and you can feel the defender slide tackle from behind you and make contact with your leg, you're going to go down. Because you know optically VAR is going to look at that and go, nah, that was some fuckery. And that's what we saw.
Well, yeah, it was a red card nonetheless, and you're thinking to yourself, oh boy, do Copenhagen have a way back into this match? And very, very quickly, Mickey Van de Ven said, no, they do not. With just an incredible box-to-box run all himself, just like Sonny a few years ago. And then Spurs, of course, add another one moments later off the foot of João Palhinha. So it's a 4-0 victory, Scott, but I'm not 100% sure. You know, like I took some confidence in it coming off of the Chelsea defeat because I felt like Spurs just needed to get one on the board, and I was happy with the way that they played. But what was your overall feeling on this one? Because, again, you've got to take the competition into account. You've got to take momentum and game state into account. But I was pleased with this, especially coming off of such a lopsided 1-0 defeat prior to that against Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you beat Copenhagen 1-2-0 and don't have a great performance, but find a way to win at home, you maybe aren't as thrilled, but it was a comprehensive, compounding victory from Tottenham. And I would say Copenhagen is comparable to like a top of the championship team, maybe. I don't know. That could be a little bit loose with that comparison, right? But if we were to go out and meet Coventry City 4-0 like that in the FA Cup, we'd all say it was a good performance, right? So I'm happy happy with what I saw. I'm really happy with Xavi Simon's performance. I thought he needed that. Really showed his quality on the ball, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about maybe why that was. And Brennan Johnson with a big brain move, knowing that going down a man would allow them to feel confident pushing forward and open up all that space at the back. So I think Brennan knew exactly what he was doing when he took that red, to be honest.
Yeah,
That was after he scored a goal already, so he did his job.
Right, he got his goal, so he was fine leaving and
Yeah.
letting the team cover him from there. TC, what about you, man? What did you think about this? Did this win give you a lot of confidence coming off
Fuck
of the backs
no,
of that Chelsea
absolutely not. I was livid watching this fucking match. We should have won this game 9-0, and I'm sitting here going, how do you miss all of these fucking chances? How do you miss these
Yeah.
chances? How are you this bad in front of goal against this bad of competition? I was so grumpy for the majority of that match. And then when Brennan got sent off, I was like, all right, we should already be up 4-0. And now we left it late. And we're gonna Tottenham right now is what I thought, and we didn't. Which you say what you want to say about the results that we're seeing under Thomas Frank. What I can tell you is that in previous iterations of this football club, we would have folded in some of these moments where we have shown a bend rather than a break mentality. And so are the results coming in the like that comprehensive 1-0 defeat to Chelsea was utterly demoralizing. This maddening yet on the score sheet effective victory in the Champions League against Copenhagen, encouraging. And then the result that we'll come on to was about par for the course where we are right now, which is tough, but yet again, just kind of shows how much we're missing our attacking options. The one name that I want to throw out from both the match that we'll come on to and the match from Wednesday was Wilson Odegaard. And I thought that guy played out of his fucking skin for both of those games.
Yeah, I would like to talk about Odegaard too. Obviously, he scores the goal on Tuesday in the Champions League and then comes off the bench and kind of really changes things for the better against United. I think there's a lot of pieces we need to talk about. And Scott, I'm glad you brought up Xavi Simons because it was disappointing that after Johnson got sent off that Xavi was the one to be sacrificed to make the sub that was necessary, and you could tell he was pretty upset by it too. But I do think from a confidence standpoint, this is what we were kind of looking for from Xavi. I fully recognize that Xavi is a talent, and I've been pretty harsh on him. I thought his game against Chelsea and even the couple before that were truly, truly bad games from him. It was the first time he was actively bad. And then stepping into this game, I thought he was able to find his confidence because he was able to find his space and his area of the pitch to work within. He was afforded that time and that space and that ability to be creative, and it's something that Spurs have been crying out for. And I thought that was an important 60-plus minutes for him to get under his legs in that situation. And then he came back against United and I thought performed okay in that one, at least in the second half as well. So I'm curious as to how we're feeling just in general about this attack, because in this game against Copenhagen, yes, they scored 4 goals. They probably could have, as Todd said, scored more, especially because they missed a penalty late, which I also
fucking Richarlison. I want to come onto that too,
because that
was really bullshit, man.
Well, there were two different times where Richarlison. Yeah. There were 2 different times that Richarlison absolutely screwed the team over. Actually, I'm going to say 3, always 3. There are 3 different times. One was before that play, when he comes across and completely blocked. I think it was Dane. He completely blocked Dane from the header that should have gone in, and flashes it wide. And then Dane has one of it. We haven't even talked on it, but the move on that poor Copenhagen right back, where he clips the ball over the defender and then backwards megs the guy, rolls off of his inside shoulder or his outside shoulder and has the ball free into the box and then gets clipped from behind. Richarlison steals the ball from him at that point in time, which there is penalty taker order for a reason. This is predetermined. Everybody knows this. But in that instance, up 4-0, you give the kid the ball. is my perspective. And then Richarlison
Sure.
flashes it off the fucking post because Richarlison is allergic. He is allergic, Andrew, to scoring goals with his feet or when the ball is on the ground. If the ball is in the air in any way, shape, or form, so on a volley or a header or a half volley even, Richarlison has a legitimate chance of scoring. But if the ball is on the ground...
Which we of course saw against United with a great reaction to flick one into the net.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. If the ball is on the ground and he's required to use his feet, it's not happening.
Fully agreed. Yeah, that was bullshit from Richarlison. I was actively upset about that. But if we go back to Odegaard for a second, I think we've talked about it numerous times on the show that he was missing only the end product, like his play in the final third, right? Just wasn't quite there, but everything else looked really good, and that's starting to come. So I think Wilson, he's young and is going to round himself into a nice little player. And you ask about the attack, Andrew. I think there's a lot of work to do. I think that there's also a lot to be said for building defensive stability, right? And growing from there. So I think Thomas Frank is working on the foundation, which is keeping the ball out of the back of the net, something that we just really struggled with last year, obviously, right? So there's been a big change there, and I think the attack will come, but I also have to point to the way that we built the squad in the final third too. I think there's concerns there, right? I think Dom's injury presumably led us to move away from Lookman at the 10th hour, right, and sign Randall Colomwani on loan at the 11th hour to have that extra striker piece who can also play wide. So I think that's hurting us right now. And I think, which is evident by his injury, that not having an adequate option to back up Mohamed Kudus in the Premier League is not only problematic for the attack itself, but also in the sense that Mohamed Kudus is now injured with some phantom ununderstood injury that we'll come to, right? But ultimately, I think there's a lot of work to do in the final third, even if the pieces are starting to maybe show.
I would agree with all of that. Go ahead, Todd.
Oh, I was just going to say I struggle with that a little bit because obviously the Kudus backup is actually probably Kulusevski, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, he's the rotational. I don't want to call him a backup. I mean, the guy's a European winner, but he's a rotational. He's the rotational right-sided forward, or right-sided attacking midfielder. However, Thomas Frank wants to set up. I think we need to talk about Colomwani, guys.
Well, we're going to do that, but we're not going to do it right now. Okay, we're going to talk about, because I want to talk about what happened to him in the United game, but I want to wrap up the Champions League first. The Champions League, we're halfway through the group stages. Spurs currently sitting 10th, so they're right on the verge of even getting into this this upper echelon where you can skip the playoff round. I think they're in a very good spot. They're the only team, other than the top 4 teams in the Champions League standings right now, that have not lost a match, which is really saying something, even though they sit 10th. They have the 2 draws and the 2 victories. The only problem, and it's not really a problem, is their remaining schedule. Of course, they have to travel to Paris Saint-Germain here coming out of the international break, which is going to be a tough one, obviously. And then they have a home match against Slavia Prague later on in December. You go into January, they have a home match against Dortmund and one more trip as well to Frankfurt to close out the group stages. I know we kind of have done this a few times already, but just checking in, I think the expectations all of a sudden may start to increase a little bit for Spurs in the hopes that they could maybe crack that top 8 and surpass the playoff. But at the very least, I think Spurs have solidified themselves as a serious knockout contender, and they're going to be playing Champions League games beyond January at this point because of their performance thus far. Let's just assess quickly, how are we feeling about the Champions League campaign so far, because I think it's been a pretty positive one, all things considered. And Scott, to your point about establishing the defense, that's obviously seemed to work, because this team has yet to lose in Europe this season, which is a big deal.
Yeah, first of all, I want to understand why our home form in Europe is so strong and our home form in domestically is so poor. It's just it's really hard to wrap your head around that, right? we're not playing just putzes every week in Europe either, right? We're winning some good matches, but honestly, to answer your question, I think we can be nothing but happy with what we're seeing. I'm trying to think of a better way to say that, right? But we can be nothing but happy. I think if we looked at episodes at the end of last season, I'm sure at some point I said we're absolutely getting run the fuck over in the Champions League next year, right? And not going to make the knockouts, right? And that was probably based on some feelings I was having about finishing 17th and just how poor we were last year, right? But to think that we're flirting with the top eight, I think we can't ask for any more. And I think the the match in Monaco leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth because I just don't think we played well, right? But we got a draw. I also look forward. I think PSG is obviously our hardest remaining match, right? No one will argue that, but they haven't been, they've been like 85% of themselves, I think, as of late, right? Which is still a very, very, very good team, right? But if I look at the fact that we're so defensively sound, and I look at what happened in the Super Cup, I think there's every reason to think we could go down there and get a draw. Like we're not winning that match, right? But if we play to a draw in that match, I think it's somewhat possible to accomplish, right? So I could see
Yeah, I
us
mean, they already
getting
did it this season.
exactly.
They already played that team to a draw. So
Exactly,
you
and
could do
really
anything
shouldn't have. We
else.
should have won that match, right? So I think ultimately, there's every reason to think that the rest of these matches can look really good. I mean, you have to think we go out and beat Slavia Praha at home in a similar manner to which we beat Copenhagen, right? And then I think that Frankfurt, it's all going to come down to Frankfurt as to whether or not we get top eight right now. I think if we go there and get a win, we secure top eight, and I think if we don't win in Frankfurt, we maybe finish like somewhere between 9 and 12, right? But either way, we'll be happy to be in the knockouts.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. So a few points that I want to touch on, just kind of looking back. Um, this team has shown that it can win a knockout tournament in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what these players have shown, and they've shown that it truly is a different competition when you're playing in the Premier League than when you're playing in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And not just because of the level of competition that you're playing, but because the way the game is officiated, because the way the game is played physically, because of the speed of the game. It's just an entirely different scenario at this stage of the Champions League. As you progress in the Champions League, the competition starts to kind of level out. And no disrespect to Monaco or, Slavia Prague or Copenhagen or, Frankfurt, but they're not PSG. They're not Real Madrid. They're not. It's not like playing Liverpool. It's just not. And so it's not even like playing Newcastle, for fuck's sake. Trust us, we found out about that. But what I will say on the Champions League and the European piece as a whole is that when you prove to yourself that you can be successful in a knockout competition, when those matches come around in a given week, your perception as a player changes. You're able to kind of take a deep breath and go, oh, if I don't fucking beat Burnley at home this week, they're going to absolutely kill me on social media. No, that's not what you're thinking. What you're thinking is, oh, here's another chance to add to the 22 matches where we haven't lost in the stadium. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal.
Well, and not only
so.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to transition and just simply to round out that point. I agree with you, Scotty. The trip to Paris is a free hit as far as I'm concerned. We talked in the last time that I was on the pod. You were like, how do you feel about the Champions League thing? And I was like, well, talk to me after Copenhagen, because we needed these 3 points from Copenhagen for us to have a legitimate shot at that top eight. Now, we hold our own destiny in our hand. I look at the next – I say Paris is a free hit. I don't even count those points. But the 3 games after that, we have to get 7 points from, is the way that I'm looking at it, right? So got to beat Frankfurt, got to beat Slavia Prague, and then I'll take a draw away at Dortmund because that's a tough place to go and play. So if we get 7 points from our next 4 matches, that's going to put us at 15 points, right in that 8-9 range. That's exactly where we'll end up being. And so if we're able to get 9 points from those last 3 matches, or if we're able to pick up at least a point in Paris and get those other 7 points in the last 3 matches, that puts us right about that 7-8 spot. So, and I know that's weird to talk about, but we're doing a really good job in terms of goal differential in this tournament so far. And so, if we are able to continue, that whole, approach to getting through this tournament successfully, that's about where it's going to end up. Now, as we're talking how that pertains to the rest of the season and approach, to be fair, how we legitimately do in those last few Champions League matches in January and then beyond into the knockout rounds is going to be determined by how early we can do fucking business in January. Andrew, I don't think that because the Slavia Prague game and the Dortmund game the Dortmund game and the Frankfurt game are the 20th and the 28th of January. And if we do stand-up Tottenham bullshit, we're going to sign people 3 days after that last match. Right? If we're actually on our P's and Q's, we're going to get stuff through the door in December and sign it as soon as the window opens, basically. So we'll see how it goes, man. A lot of stuff can change in the next 2 months, Andrew, in terms of our viability in this competition. But as it stands right now, I don't know that this many points in this place in the Champions League table, plus this many points in goal differential in the Premier League table, that you can look at, and this many people missing in our attack, that you can look at Thomas Frank and say he hasn't done a very good job comprehensively.
I would pretty much agree with everything there. I do want to move us to the United match because coming out of Copenhagen, I'm thinking, all right, United at home, we beat them 4 times last season. I think we're unbeaten against them in what was it, like 7 or 8 straight
since 2021.
And they come out and kind of lay an egg in the first half and don't look very good. And you mentioned Kolo Muani earlier. I do want to talk about him because there was this collision that he had with Harry Maguire early in the match, kind of inadvertent contact for the most part, it looked like. I don't think there was anything malicious by any stretch, but RKM goes down and then is taken off after half, and we find out today, Sunday, that he has apparently suffered a fractured jaw and is going to be out indefinitely. He actually had gotten a call up to the French national team for this international break. That's no longer happening. So I cut you off earlier, TC, just because I wanted to move us to this point to talk about the injury a little bit, but also what we've seen from Randall Kolo Muani, and I want to give you the floor on him because you said you had a lot to say about him.
I do. I hope we cancel his loan in January.
That seems okay. Why?
Because I watched him play football for half a season, and he's not very good. I don't feel as though we are substantially better, save his hold-up play, which is what he does well as a forward. He has better hold-up play than Matthias Tell. But other than the hold-up play, he is not a better option as a striker for Tottenham Hotspur than Matthias Tell, who's not a striker, or Dane Scarlett, who is a man at this point in time. And every time we've seen him in the last 2 years has been surprisingly better than we thought he was. And he's about ready to get his time. So that's my perspective, because right now I've watched Kolo Muani give the ball away cheaply, not have good timing with his French teammates, and have that not really make sense to me. Fall over in times when he should have shown strength, and ultimately just put us in a position to be less successful than we should have been because of the missed chances he's had in front of goal. If I wanted to see missed chances in front of a goal from a Tottenham striker, I'd just play Richarlison all the time. But that's not what we're trying to do, right? We're actually trying to make strides and have options since Dom is hurt. And we don't have that with Kolo Muani, and haven't had that with Kolo Muani because he's been so inconsistent. Now, you could tell me that inconsistency is him needing to adapt to the league, and you got to be understandable. But I'm already using up that patience for Xavi Simons, who's having a real hard time adapting to this league. So I don't got any more of that. You can't give me 2 people in the same window and sell them to me as game changers for this team and then have both of them underperform because they're not up to speed in the league. It's not what we're doing here. That's the reason why you sign a Mohamed Kudus, right? A Premier League proven player. It's the reason, to Scotty's point, you sign a Lookman, a Premier League proven player. And these guys are not that. Simons, that's fine. He is a project. He is a young man. We are letting him know. It's like Sonny. When Sonny got here, My biggest thing with Sonny is he's got all the talent in the world, flashes of brilliance, but he's not great one-on-one and when it's just him and the keeper, and gets physically beat off the ball. And within 2 seasons, Andrew, those 2 things were his strengths. So if Xavi Simons can come in and do that, that's awesome. But as I look at RKM, there is nothing that guy does that tells me he can make Tottenham Hotspur better on a regular basis.
Scott, you want to go? Because I'm still formulating my thoughts here. I don't really know how to respond to any of that because I think it's been 8 games and 4 starts and the dude's been hurt and I don't really know what else. I can't jump to a conclusion.
But what's a player's best ability, Andrew? I forget.
It's availability for sure. But
Okay.
you're going to tell me
I forget
that Sonny needed 2 years to adjust, but you're not willing to give him.
No, that's not what I said.
You know,
I said within 2 years, those things were his strength. And
Sure.
what I'm saying from Randall Colomuani is that there have been gilt-edged chances that he's fucking fluffed. And I don't sign a striker on loan for you to fluff gilt-edged chances. I sign a 19 or a 20-year-old number 10 to develop him in the fastest, strongest league in the world. I sign an on-loan striker from PSG to bang in fucking goals. And when you complain about our lack of efficiency or our lack of execution in the final third, and rightly so, you can't do anything but point at the guy who's supposed to finish the fucking chances that are being created. And when you look at the chances created, we're creating more chances from outside the box than the only other 3 teams in the league or whatever, thanks to Pedro Porro primarily and Mohamed Kudus. Like, those guys are putting the balls in and we're not fucking finishing. That's not okay with me.
our finishing has been poor. But when I look at Colomuani, and I'm very careful to say something like this, but I don't see much effort from him. I don't see effort in the press. I don't see effort in helping in defense. And I start to think about why that could be. Let's walk through all of this. Last year, doesn't get much playing time at PSG. I think it was 10 appearances, right? And then he goes on loan to Juventus, does okay, 16 appearances, 8 goals and 1 assist. He was all right for Juventus, and I watched him play at least 4 or 5 times for them, right? He was okay, but at the tail end of this transfer window, he's been at Juventus. He played in the Club World Cup for Juventus. He's happy in Turin, and Juventus and PSG are squabbling over like 8 million euros in this option to buy or maybe obligation to buy. I can't remember. Don't quote me, but it was either an option or obligation, right? They're squabbling over these $8 million or euros. Juventus gets pissed, pulls the plug. PSG is kind of left on their ass. It's like, okay, now what do we do with Colomuani? In come Tottenham Hotspur, right? So Colomuani is basically told, if you want to play any football, you have one chance on the transfer deadline day, and it's to go to Tottenham Hotspur, right? Now, I'll just be honest. I'll take my Spurs hat off, literally and figuratively, right? I can't fault anyone for not necessarily wanting to come to Tottenham on loan, right? We've been floundering as a club. Last year, great, we won the Europa League, but we almost got relegated at the same time, right? There was just a lot going on, and Tottenham has a reputation for just not being a great place to continue elevating your career, and we have empirical data to back that up, right? And so if I'm Colomuani,
well, it depends. It depends on what kind of player that you're talking about. But
for sure, this is a whole nother episode, right? If we want to really dig into all of that, but all I'm saying is, if I'm Colomuani, I'm probably not super thrilled that it's either sit on the bench at PSG, and I don't even mean on the bench, like you're not making squads, or you're going to go to Tottenham Hotspur on loan for 1 year with absolutely no option or obligation to buy, like.
Well, that was the thing, Scotty. You bring that up. Like that deal almost didn't go through because PSG were pushing so hard for us to have an obligation to buy in that contract,
and we didn't want it.
And
yeah,
thank
exactly.
God that we made that
I
choice.
agree.
Is all I'm saying.
But they also wanted too much money. We would have done it if the money was right. But PSG were asking for way too much money. It's just they wanted 65 million from Juventus and an obligation, and Juventus were willing to offer like 57 or something, right? Which is where I pulled that 8 million euros from. So I imagine it's very similar with Spurs. we weren't willing to put up the type of money and an obligation that PSG was asking for. Now that's not Cole Mwani's fault either. But my whole point to all of this is like his. Yeah, but he can't control the numbers that are being squabbled over. Is all that I'm saying,
that's
right?
He
That's
can
all I'm
control
saying.
the numbers that he scores on.
100%.
I mean,
But when it comes to the purchase point, that's out of his control, right? And so I think some of that, I have to put that out there. But ultimately, he has his only like purpose this season is to play well enough to maybe earn time at PSG next year, or find himself like when you've gone through this dejecting process of not being able to move on from the club you no longer want to be at, end up at Spurs on a season-long loan. It's like, great, maybe I do have a wonderful season. Do we go through this whole process again next year? Do I maybe get time at PSG where they're absolutely stacking the ranks full of young world-class talent? Probably not, right? So I don't know how this guy's motivated to play football right now, and I think that kind of speaks on the pitch.
So I hear everything you guys are saying. I was a little taken aback by your call, Todd, to be like, let's cancel his loan in January, just because I feel like we haven't seen enough. And for me, I'm just looking at this from a Tottenham perspective. I don't look if Kolo Muani's not motivated to play football or not motivated to stay healthy or whatever else. I don't. None of that's my business. I'm looking at this from a Tottenham perspective, is that they need bodies right now because they have this Dominic Solanke injury that has completely stretched now into, based on Thomas Frank's comments this week, it sounds like he's not going to participate in whatever friendly they're organizing for this international break. They're going to try and get Radu Dragic in some minutes, but Solanke's not going to be fit for that. They're saying, well, this will be a really key international break for Dom Solanke. We don't really fully know if he's even going to be back by the end of the calendar year at this point. So that leaves you with Richarlison. That leaves you with Tell. And now that Kolo Muani has a fractured jaw, who knows? I guess I'm just looking at this from... Okay, and fair. Totally. I get all of that. But they're looking for bodies, and we haven't... Todd, you made the point. Like, I always say it, but you made the point. Your best ability has to be your availability, and Kolo Muani had this dead leg thing that kept him out for entirely too long, and now he has this jaw issue, which is a weird, freak, unfortunate incident, but, like, let's see it. I totally get all of that perspective. Let's see it.
Both of those things are physicality related, by the way.
Well, okay, fine, but I'm not ready to just cut bait in January. I want to see if you can get something out of him. But I'm certainly not locked into this.
Well, with the fractured jaw, bro, like how long? Well, with the fractured jaw, how much are you actually going to get to see him? And where are you actually going to trust him?
We don't know. And that's and therein lies the problem that Spurs have in the attacking front in general. I want to dive a little bit more into this game from a because this was such a weird match too, because the Kolo Muani injury we didn't even really know about until honestly today. He came off at halftime and everyone kind of thought it was tactical, bringing Wilson
really
Odegaard
quick
on
too
for him. Yeah,
but before we talk about the match, I think just a little bit more on Kolo Muani. We're talking about, do we cancel the loan in January, blah blah blah. A fractured jaw, there's no way to stabilize a jaw and play football, right? It's not an orbital bone. You don't throw a mask on, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him again until 2026 anyways. Like, you cannot stabilize a fractured jaw, and it has to sit tight, right? So I think this could be a moot point anyways. Like, he may not play again for Spurs, and maybe that's just what it is.
Yeah. The first half, you get the Mbeumo goal against his former coach, and obviously that was going to happen. Dude's been on fire. I say obviously it was going to happen. Spurs just kind of get left flat-footed and give up an early goal, and Spurs honestly didn't really do anything in the first half. They just looked kind of dreadful. But then Wilson Odegaard comes on in what we, like I said, originally thought, I think many thought it was a tactical move, and it honestly does kind of change some things. I mean, Spurs just looked brighter in the second half, and obviously it took until they left it pretty late for the Matisse Tell goal to get them level, and then the Richarlison goal in stoppage time. But this game, to me, it was the epitome of these two teams meeting over the last year, because neither team looks like they really want to do much, and in the end it was just a frenetic kind of wild finish that I think rightfully, to some extent, ended in a draw. Scott, what was your takeaway just overall from this one? Because Spurs ended up once again out XGing United somehow, but end up still only with a point.
Yeah, I would just say minutes 1 through 88 were something that you absolutely do not need to have any interest in watching if you haven't yet. They just a pretty poor display of football, and then minutes 88 through the final whistle were pretty exciting, right? But yeah, two teams that are just or not no longer are, but have been rudderless, somewhat recently, and are working through that. And two clubs that also, honestly, now Man United is a massive club, but at this current point in time, two clubs that are trying to figure out if they're gonna sit at the table with all the big boys or if they're fighting for a spot at that table, right? So I just think it was indicative of two situations. And the broadcast, I don't remember who was calling the match, but the broadcast said yesterday, this game is designed to ease us into a Premier League weekend rather than have us on the edge of our seats, right? And I think that was a accurate reflection. And I would also say it was reflective in my personal experience because I woke up. I think this was a 6 a.m. kickoff, if I'm not mistaken, Central Time, maybe 6:30. But either way, I woke up.
6:30. It was 4:30
Yeah,
West Coast, bud.
thank you. Yeah, 6:30 Central. So I woke up about 7:05, right? And I call on my phone and I'm like, oh, Premier League scheduled this weekend is what I typed into Google. I'm like, oh, when do Spurs play? What's going on this morning, right? Like, what matches can I catch
Oh
to kill
god.
some time? And I see the Spurs and Man United are in the 21st minute of a match. So I wake my wife up. I'm like, you gonna watch Spurs? And she's like, fuck you. Like I was probably up till 4 a.m. with a baby, so no, just record the
You
match for me,
woke up
right?
your sleeping wife with a
Oh, dude,
newborn at 5 or at 6:30 in the morning.
look, if I didn't do
Tell me
that,
you're a first-time dad without telling me you're a
dude,
first-time
no,
dad.
no, this is all about my wife being a diehard Spurs fan and a bigger Spurs fan than I am. So if I don't wake her up and give her the option to watch Spurs or not, she's gonna wake up at 11 a.m. and be like, "I missed the match. I cannot believe you didn't wake me up for the match." Blah blah blah. So I did. I made the right choice here, okay? And she went
That's an
back to bed.
interesting gamble, my guy.
I'm
uh,
just wondering if Scott knows that this is being recorded for posterity. I'm not 100% sure he's aware of that.
Oh
no,
man.
she doesn't watch
Obviously,
the show. It's fine.
obviously, as you say, Scott, if you missed the first half, you didn't miss a ton from a Spurs perspective. But the last 15 to 20 minutes of this match were really something, TC. And I mentioned the Odebear change, but for me, it was actually also the Destiny Udogie and substitution that changed it, because he and Odebear on that left side, we saw it against Copenhagen earlier in the week, really seemed to have found something. And I think that was what Spurs needed to kind of get the juices flowing once again in this match. And the Matisse Tell goal, for me, I loved so much because it was someone actually taking initiative and using some of his skill. And I want to see more from Matisse Tell in this sense. I agree with you in the sense that I don't think he's an out-and-out striker in this league. I think he needs to play off the left a little bit. But I liked what I saw from him, and I want to see it more. Obviously, we're not going to get to see it in the Champions League until potentially the knockout rounds. But for him to score that goal in that moment, I thought was a really big deal.
I don't disagree with you. In baseball they call it a Texas leaguer, right? It's a bloop single that when you're in the middle of a slump and you just need a hit, any sort of a hit, and you got this little bloop that drops over the second baseman's head right in front of the right fielder. And that's kind of the goal that Matthias Tell scored, because that was definitely a deflected shot. If you looked at the trajectory of that ball, it was going directly at the keeper. And
I disagree. I think it was going to be a goal regardless, but it was a deflected
I
shot.
appreciate your rare optimism, very, very much. I love it. But what I will tell you is the way that ball deflected off of that defender's foot was very favorable for Matthias Tell, one way or the other. And what I would say is that exactly what you say in baseball when the Texas leaguer drops in. Looks like a rocket on the score sheet. And that's exactly what we're talking about with Matthias Tell. He needed that to get off the schneid. He is absolutely a confidence player. As a man, I root for Matthias Tell, the man. I like him. I think he is a good representative of the badge. And I think he has the potential to be a great Tottenham Hotspur player in the future. I don't think it'll be it as a 9 unless he takes a page out of the Dane Scarlett book and puts on about 25 pounds in the next year. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I've been banging on about Dane, and I want to go back to it here, is because if not now, when? Is kind of my point. We know who Richarlison is. We know what Richarlison brings to the table. And in certain matches, all you want is a Richarlison type of forward. Press, nag, needle, disrupt. But sometimes you need to be able to have the type of hold-up play that Dane Scarlett can produce, which is a dink over the defender, a backwards meg, roll off the guy's back shoulder and go to goal. Richarlison doesn't necessarily have that in his bag. He has a lot of things in his bag, not necessarily a touch or the ability to score with his feet, but he's got a lot of stuff in his bag. And as you're looking at this situation, as we talk about Matthias Tell and what he can and can't do at the current moment in time, I go back to the point that I made earlier. As much as I needed to see him get off the schneid, and that's exciting for me, Wilson Odegaard is clearly our best left winger as it stands right now. And I think, without a doubt, Dane Scarlett is our best option to back up Richarlison at the 9.
So I just double checked my math here because I found it very interesting what you say about Matthias Tell needs to do what Dane Scarlett did and add the weight. And I think there's no reason why he can't do something like that. He is still so young. In fact, Matthias Tell is a year younger than Dane Scarlett at this point, which is surprising to some, but he is still kind of one for the future. And I think that's what I'm encouraged by, is that there is still room for his growth. It's not like he is a finished product by any stretch. I totally agree with you from the sense that if not now, when for Dane Scarlett. There were some comments from Thomas Frank this week about Dane Scarlett needing more games and needing more game time. And it sure sounded like it wasn't going to be game time that he was going to be getting at Spurs, even though he did get those minutes against Copenhagen. It just, the tone of it sounded a little bit like we want this guy to go get his game somewhere and then come back to us when he's ready. I tend to agree with you. I don't know what makes him not ready at this point. I think he should be getting more minutes in the Premier League to.
Well, those comments were before Harry Maguire cracked Arcane's jaw.
And that's a big part of this too. Is where does the offense come from and where are the options? When it comes to Odegaard, I'm glad you bring him up. And like I said, I brought up Udogie too. I'm wondering if there's something cooking with those two on the left, and if that needs to be something, because we're starting to see Udogie get more minutes now as well after his injury stuff. And not that I think he should be taking minutes from Jed Spence, but I think some rotation is in order there. Jed Spence's game has slipped a little bit, even though he did keep his place in the England squad. I want to see a little bit more of this true rotation among the fullbacks, because I think that's going to be important in keeping everyone fresh. And I do think that there's a little bit of an Udogie Odegaard thing happening on that left side that I'm enjoying seeing so far.
I agree. And Scotty, I want to kick to you in just a moment. But the one thing that I wanted to say on this is that the Jed Spence of the situation is something that I think we need to chat about. Because Jed Spence on the left is a defensive stalwart one-on-one. But going forward on the left, he's very predictable because everybody knows he's going to cut in on his right foot.
Yeah.
Jed Spence is somewhat of an offensive threat on the right-hand side and has the ability to make some things happen there, but not at the rate that's even remotely close to the type of offensive production that Pedro Porro has. And however, defensively on the right, Jed, though probably better one-on-one as a defender than Pedro Porro, is not as good as covering the inside on the right as Pedro Porro is, which is exactly the reason why Jed ends up on the left all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analysis of it.
I fully agree. I mean, obviously, when you're a right-footed player on the left side, it is easier to defend the inside channels, right? So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. But yeah, I still think that Jed is a wonderful rotation piece. I don't know, like, let's say for England, for example, I think if England comes up against, whatever, it doesn't matter, someone in the World Cup like a France, right? You may play him on the left-hand side and just have him defend, right, and do it really well. But I don't think he's England's best fullback on either side. I don't think he's probably Spurs' best fullback on either side, but he plays a very important role when he's called upon, and you need a guy like that. You love a guy like that. Also, the type of confidence he has in himself right now is really important to have in the squad. But at the same time, in the European Cup final last year, it was Porro and Udogie that got the start, right? And I think there's a reason for that. So yeah, but having this unique three fullback system where one can play on either side really well is great. I mean, you can't actually rotate three, but in a perfect world, we bring in somebody else to just, tell Jed we need you to develop as a left fullback or a right fullback, right, and get the rotation actually going properly. But for now, I think we have a pretty good, solid, sweet spot found at the club from a fullback perspective.
For the NBA fans out there, Andrew, Jed Spence is Bruce Bowen.
Yeah, he is kind of like the sixth man of this team.
The defensive stopper.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important too, like we saw in this United match, like you bring Udogie in on the left, move Spence over to the right, and then you can get attack going on both sides rather than just one, while you still have defensive responsibilities there. That is, I think, a big part too of why, and I mentioned Udogie with this overlap with Odebear, and they seem to have something cooking. That is part of the reason Spurs were able to get back into this game, and obviously it all kind of went the way that it went at the end, which was an emotional roller coaster for some, but I do think that this was the fair result. And I just thought that it was disappointing.
It doesn't mean you have to like it.
Right. It was disappointing, but also I didn't want to be greedy about it because of the way that Spurs performed for 3/4 of that match, which was not very great. So I think it's the type of match you take the point and you run with it and go from there. A few quick hitters before. Go ahead.
Last thing on this match. Should the players tackle Richarlison and not let him take his shirt off after he scores what should be a decisive goal? Like, is that the approach? Because every time he takes his shirt off, we fucking piss a goal away.
I did not know about this curse until it was brought to my attention yesterday. There is apparently a Richarlison shirt curse where every time he removes his shirt, something goes horribly wrong after that.
Horribly wrong.
Yeah, probably a good idea to keep your shirt on. Not only to avoid the yellow card, which you're obviously going to pick up for doing so, but yeah, because then what happened after? Yes.
Can we talk about Vicario? On these two goals from the weekend?
Go ahead, talk about him.
Oh, but
I don't know what you want me to say.
Are these goals that we should expect our number one goalkeeper to concede?
Dude, here's what's happening with Vicario. When we're getting absolutely peppered, he's fantastic. When we're not getting peppered, he's mistake prone, and is that a focus thing? I guess
important matches.
Yeah, 100%. Look, if we have an option to bring in a better keeper, I think we do it. And I like Vicario. I think he's a natural leader. I think he's a great shot stopper. But let's say hypothetically, Mike Mignon becomes available and decides it's time to part ways with AC Milan. You snap somebody like that up right away and move on from Vicario. But he's serviceable to a point where we can focus on other areas of the pitch right now. But the time is coming where if we really want to compete for things, we're going to need somebody who's a more well-rounded goalkeeper, I think.
So, Andrew, I think this is a big blind spot. And I talked on the last program about Vicario at length and about how his world-class talent is his reaction saves. Mm-hmm. They absolutely are. Where he is a fucking donkey is in his anticipatory saves. Because both of those are slide 2 fucking steps to the left.
I think the first one is tough. It's a very bad defensive lapse from everyone in front of him for sure, which obviously is going to make it tougher. The second one, he gets there, he's just in the fucking goal, and you can't save a goal in your own goal. That's the problem. Like you can't stop a goal from happening while in your own goal. That's where the goal happens, obviously. Like, what are we doing?
No, and again, and for me, that's a positioning thing.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, do better, my guy. Like,
do better, my guy. And you can't have the number one goalkeeper on a European Champions League team. be a do better my guy goalkeeper. You can't do that, Andrew.
No, I agree. And look, Vicario had a hell of a run of games here recently. This was not his best game by any stretch.
That's fair.
I don't think he's going to have many better than he had in the last couple run. But I also don't think.
Oh, that's peak.
I don't think that the floor is much lower than we've seen either. There is a certain floor there that he has, but I agree with Scotty. Like there's another level to this. There is another step to take at that position. I just don't know that we're ready to take it quite yet.
Well, and I don't know that we want to pay to take it, because that's kind of not what we do. So it's like, who's not Mike Mignon that we can get to improve upon Vicario? And I don't know.
Barring a 2-goal Liverpool comeback against Man City, which is being played as we are recording this, Spurs are going to head into the international break in a European place. They're in 5th right now through 11 matches.
That was a Champions League place this year, bud.
For everything we've bitched about and for everything that has gone wrong with this club, to be to the November international break, which is hilarious to say because there have been so many international breaks, but to be at the 11 match mark in the league and be in 5th for as much of a struggle as it has felt like, I think is okay. And obviously there's a big one coming up on the other side of the international break, which, you know, we'll get to talk about going forward, but you just kind of have to take these as they come. The next handful of matches coming out of this international break are going to prove to be the ones that make or break, I think, whether or not this team is really going to be barking up the European tree by the end of the season.
Well, I think now's the time to talk about that, Andrew. The game that really matters is that in exactly 2 weeks from today, that scummy bunch who happens to hang out at the top of the table is going to host the mighty Tottenham Hotspur at 8:30 in the morning Pacific time. And if we somehow manage to do what we rarely do and pick up 3 points there, when Manchester City starts their match, they will be 1 point behind Arsenal in the table. Or if Manchester City wins their match, they'll be 1 point behind Arsenal in the table. Mm-hmm. So, to be the catalyst for these asshats to fumble the league yet again would be magical for us.
It sure would. I would certainly enjoy it. No question about it. Before we move on to talk about Spurs women, I do just want to mention, best thoughts to Destiny Udogie for what he's gone through over the last few months. Mm-hmm. Apparently was threatened with a gun by an agent in September. It was confirmed by the club this week. Obviously, a lot of laws in the UK about revealing things of this nature, but I'm not in the UK, so I don't need to abide by those laws. But the club confirmed it, so this was a scary situation, and I'm glad that he is kind of getting through that. I do want to talk about the other kind of Spursy sponsorship off the field news, but before we do that, I want to touch on the women's game here with Scott for a minute, because they took one on the chin this morning against London City Lionesses, and it wasn't even that bad of a result in the grand scheme of things, but a 4-2 defeat away looks a lot worse than I think it was. And it wasn't something that I was I woke up this morning very early to watch this match, and it was entertaining for certain, but it didn't go the way that Spurs women wanted it to, Scotty.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a tough result, and it's probably a tough result against a team who we're somewhat competing with in the same section of the Women's Super League standings right now. I think if you
that said, the road fans were very loud during this game too.
They were,
I will give them credit for that.
100%. Always got to give some love to Chris Poros, who always, and I'm sorry, Chris, if I don't pronounce your last name correctly, if you hear, right? But I can always hear Chris loud and clear through the women's broadcast, leading everything. So I gotta give Chris some love there. Away fans were great, but that's a game you got to win if you want to compete, for the aspirations we hope to compete for. Right. Does that sentence make sense? I think you understand what I'm trying to say. So
yes.
we just needed to win this one, and it's tough that we came back from being down, right, and drew level, and then conceded two
Twice.
goals right away
Well,
after drawing level twice. So it's just a tough
yeah.
defeat for sure, and one that the girls will learn from. But Lion City Lionesses, let's always remember, even though they just came up, they're a good team. And they've had some really awesome investment. And I said it in the chat this morning, they're a team that I'm like low key jealous of the way that they've just kind of blazed a
Fair.
trail or pioneered a path for women's football in the Women's Super League, right? By breaking off from the men's team and securing that investment from Michelle Kang, who is single-handedly, looking to change the modern women's game. There's a Ben Harper song, "I Can Change the World with My Own Two Hands," and Michelle Kang is changing the world with her own two hands from a women's football perspective. So I have a lot of respect for women, London City Lionesses, and again, I'm low key jealous, but yeah, tough one this morning.
Tinka
Yeah.
Tandberg scored a penalty goal in this one, and if you haven't seen the Evelina Suman free kick, I encourage you to go find that because it was an incredible goal. As you mentioned, Spurs came back twice in this one, and it still just wasn't enough. There was an Amanda Nilden own goal, which was
Well,
unfortunate.
we had to talk about Amanda. She's my girl,
She was
and
incredible in this game.
she had a rough one. Freya Godfrey absolutely beat her to a pulp in certain moments, and it was tough. The own goal obviously looks bad on paper, but like if you ask Amanda herself, she also got a yellow card in this game. Like if you ask Amanda herself, like she'll probably tell you this is not one of my best matches.
Well, and when I looked at the scoreline in this game, it's not reflective of the result to me
No,
because I mean, hell, if you look at the XG alone, Spurs outperformed and they had more of
yeah,
the ball, and it was
yeah,
it was kind of a wonky match in that sense. And Spurs were kind of always in it until the very end when they weren't when the lead got stretched to a 2-goal lead late.
yeah.
Like I said, the 4-2 line doesn't reflect. I feel kind of bad. I feel a little bit guilty because I did put in the group chat last night that Spurs only needed to get a point from this match in order to enter a North London derby
Yeah,
ahead of Arsenal for the first time ever, and then of course they
yeah,
go out and lose.
yeah,
But that is what's next on the horizon for Spurs. They do host Arsenal at Brisbane Road next week, and they sit level on points with Arsenal, but Arsenal have the better goal differential, so they are fourth,
yeah.
Spurs are fifth. Obviously, you're not going to go into this match expecting anything from it, but you're still hopeful that you can maybe nick a point. Arsenal
I feel like the
have not
closest
been
we've been.
flawless.
I feel like this is the closest we've been in at least 2 years to go to Brisbane Road and have a chance of getting any points. So
Yeah,
whatever that means.
yeah, we'll see how that comes about. Scotty had to bounce, but I wanted to touch on this with you, my friend, because Spurs announced this week that they are sort of moving on from their shirt sponsor. Not really, but sort of. AIA, of course, has been the front of shirt sponsor for Spurs since 2013. But they are kind of changing the relationship starting in the 2027-2028 season. AIA will move to become the training wear sponsor for Spurs on the front of their shirt, moving off of the matchday shirt, and Spurs will be basically in search of a new sponsor for the front of the shirt, Todd. I am interested in this from a business standpoint because of everything that's changed at the club over the last handful of months. And now this is another change. We've heard rumors of stadium naming rights. We have something we have not talked about. I don't think at all on the pod is the deal that Spurs have done with Sports Illustrated and the ticketing deal for one of their stands. Obviously, all these different sources of revenue coming into the club, but a front of the shirt sponsor is a pretty big deal. It's very visible. It's very front facing for that reason. What was your thoughts when you heard this news? First of all,
Celebration. I mean, to be entirely candid with you, ever since AIA took over for HP as the front of the kit sponsor, it's been an eyesore for every Tottenham Hotspur fan to look at that red on the front of our pristine lily white shirt. And, we all know the reasons why, and we, respect the Chinese culture and respect AIA for, the way that they do what they do and how they do it. But we're talking about an English football team that's fiercest rivals wear red and white. And I don't want to see that every day. So that's super exciting for me. Secondarily, the training kits are usually not white. They're usually a different color. which means we can make the AIA whatever color we want to. That's cool. Thirdly, this opens up the opportunity. It's iconic, as you mentioned. It's not only very visible, it's iconic. People refer to the whatever it was, the 84 Cup Winners' Cup the 84 UEFA Cup as the Holston shirt, right? Or the FA Cup as the Holston shirt. Or I just remember, the HP shirts, or, things like you remember what era of the club you're talking about by who the kit sponsor was.
Right.
When I think of when I first started appreciating Tottenham was the Thomason era, when it's got the smiley face and on the white and on the yellow kits. As I look at this is kind of like a new era. Poch talked about a painful rebuild, and I keep referencing it was a decade ago now. But this is what a rebuild looks like. If you look at Tottenham Hotspur from 2015 and look at Tottenham Hotspur at the end of 2025, we look like completely different footballing entities.
Yeah.
Completely different footballing entities. We've been to a Champions League final. Yeah. We've opened a brand new training facility that's world class. We've opened the best stadium in Europe. We've won a European trophy for the first time in 40 years. We've exorcised the demon that is Daniel Levy from our bowels, as it were. And we now have the ability to rebrand Tottenham Hotspur for the future, for my kids' shirts that they'll remember going forward. They'll have their era of whatever sponsor it happens to be. Now, can all of this whimsical kind of pontificating about, the iconism of the shirt sponsor change immediately, Andrew? Absolutely it can. And there's a few ways that can happen. And I know that you have your concerns. What are those?
Well, my initial concern was that, the current training wear sponsor is BetMGM. And my initial concern was, they're just going to swap them and BetMGM is going to become the front of shirt sponsor. But then I remembered that there's actually a ban that's going to be put in place starting next season in the Premier League for gambling sponsors on the front of the shirt. Now, you can have a gambling sponsor on your sleeve or pretty much anywhere else, but it cannot be the front of shirt sponsor. By the way, did you know that there are currently 11 of the 20 Premier League clubs that have a gambling front of shirt sponsor? More than half of the Premier League clubs are going to need to change that sponsor before the start of next season.
We've had a betting sponsor on the front of shirt before in the old mansion shirts. The 125th anniversary shirt of this club had a betting sponsor on the front of it. So, we're not immune to this, but clearly there's a reason why this is happening, and we support the reason behind that.
And obviously, so that concern was alleviated, but I guess I'm just kind of concerned about what the sponsor could be, where that money's coming from, for a multitude of reasons. And I don't think they need to be spelled out. That money could be very dirty money, and I think there's always an inherent fear with me that we're going to be wading into those waters, and I hope that the club does not.
Well, I've just always appreciated not having Qatari Airways or Fly Emirates on the shirt, and I would appreciate not having Aramco on the shirt. To be fair, for reasons that I don't necessarily think we need to go into on this pod. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, right? Like there is such thing as sports washing in this world. It exists. We hope to not be part of it, and I think that's about where it stands. And that's not to say that Lord Sugar and Joe Lewis and everybody involved have completely clean hands, because you don't become a billionaire in this world by keeping your hands clean, Andrew. That's just a fact. So we'll admit that as well. This is not some sort of holier-than-thou perspective. This is simply to say that we'd hope to avoid all of that.
Very much so. And that's the only reason it makes me nervous. It is intriguing. Like, what's the shirt going to look like come 2 years?
Sure.
It's a conversation that we're going to get to have for a little while, because this is not happening next season. It's the season after next season that the change will officially be made. But I'm sure an announcement will come before it actually happens, and we're going to get to discuss it at some point. But it's just one of those things that you start to ponder and wonder, because it is a big change. Like you said, it's been since 2013. And it'll be like 14 years with the same front of shirt sponsor before it goes away. So that is a lifetime. That is a couple lifetimes in the game of football, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see what the club does with that going forward, with that massive piece of real estate. Not to mention stadium, stands, all these different avenues.
Dude, I love how they're naming stands. I love how they're naming stands before they're naming the stadium. It's brilliant. Like, do it.
It's certainly there's certainly a business class that could be taught surrounding what exactly Tottenham are doing in this realm. Like it's
wait a decade from now and see what the high road looks like.
Right. Yeah.
Dude.
And
anyway,
with NFL and every concerts and everything else going on, like, we know there's a reason people know the name Tottenham Hotspur now, and it's because of that fucking stadium, and that's a really big deal. And as much as we bitched and moaned about everything, that they've gotten some of these things very, very correct. So we'll have to hope that they get the shirt sponsor correct as well. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. That is going to do it for this edition of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. Shout out to my buddy Tim. He probably won't hear this, but he is a dirty, dirty Chelsea fan who don't have a shirt to sponsor this season, which actually, I hate to say, looks good.
Yeah,
maybe we could just go with no shirt sponsor. But shout out to him. He was giving me hell yesterday as I played golf with him on the backs of that 2-2 draw, which was so deflating. He's been checking us out. So if you want to spread the word, feel free. Be sure to leave us a rating review on your podcast app of choice. You can follow Scott at Scott G. Bird. You can follow Todd at TC_Show. You can follow me at A. Stetka. But most importantly, follow us at Tottenham Depot for all of your latest Tottenham Depot info. That's going to do it for us. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.